Welcome everyone to the XDI Experience live show episode 16. Today is a very special show and I am humbled to be joined by one of what I consider to be the greats. A man who against all odds, as you will find out very soon, has achieved incredible, extraordinary feats of human performance. A driven, meticulous planner, highly intelligent, highly focused, and a major investor in innovation, startups, and a growing business as well. Let's understand what it takes, how he invests in innovation, and what's happening to the investor market as we come through COVID. Let's do this. Okay, ask questions in the comments section over there, up there, down below, whichever it is. We are going extreme activities that few in this world have come close to repeating, and talking incredible human determination to have an extraordinary life. Then we're talking investing in COVID times. So please ask questions, ask about extreme activities, overcoming challenges, or just good old investing. Let's introduce our guest today, David Liano. He's either all in or he doesn't do it at all. He's actually just gone somewhere close to 500 kilometers on a bike into deepest India. So let's hope the connection holds up, fingers crossed. He's done Everest 7 times. Only 60 people on the planet have done that before. 40 of them are Sherpas, and they've got different blood and DNA, so amazing feat. First man to double summit the mountain within a few days of each other, from both Tibet and from India. He's done K2, and the list goes on and on. But one of the big things is his incredible eye for the numbers, his incredible approach to investments and picking the right one. Let's talk about it. Ready, set, let's go. David Liano, you made it. You're probably walking a little funny right now after 500 kilometers or whatever it was. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Andrew, and just happy to be here on the XDI live show.
Pleasure, pleasure, and a complete honor. Really, it is. So you've just gone on a bike. Is it 500 kilometers to somewhere deep in India? Is that right?
That's right, but it is really exciting riding here, and I couldn't compare it with riding in any other place in the world. It's a real adventure.
Yeah, I know. Missing the cows, and you've probably got people crossing over and everything. So interesting time.
Cows, camels, you name it, it's here.
Great. So today, David, we're doing quick fire round first up. We're doing 5 minutes across 5 questions related to some of your scariest, well, we'll call them greatest achievements. Then we're going off into our main discussion, which is around you, around finance and investing today. So David, if you're ready, let's get started. Let's start the clock. Yep, there we go. Here she comes. Alrighty, so we're going down on 5. We're going on 4. 5 minutes, 4 questions. First question up. What has been your hardest climb and why?
Well, I've had many tough climbs. I've been on Everest during one of the biggest earthquakes in Nepal, but I would consider my hardest climb climbing Denali, which is the highest mountain in North America. It's in Alaska. And we just got such bad weather through the climb that we were stuck in a camp for 6 days on a snowstorm. We had to come out every few hours to dig ourselves out, so our tent wouldn't collapse with all the weight of the snow. And then after we could move up in the mountain, it was so windy that we couldn't even put up a tent. We had to dig a snow cave and sleep inside. And we finally were able to get to the summit, but it was a very intense climb.
Amazing. Okay, question 2. Who's the most fascinating person you've met and why?
I would say Chiring Dorje Sherpa. This Sherpa has climbed Everest more times than I have. And on his last climb, he suffered a stroke on the way down. And can you imagine, from being on the summit of Everest so many times to having to learn how to walk all over again? And it was a very, very difficult process for him. After some time of physical therapy, I was able to go back with him to the mountains, and we climbed a peak together. But just seeing his resilience and his tenacity was the biggest inspiration that I could have.
Incredible. 3, what's been the most exhilarating extreme activity experience you've had?
Well, besides mountaineering and paragliding, I am also a sailor. And one of my biggest challenges was trying to sail around the world nonstop, solo and unassisted. And it was a challenge that I prepared for years, getting a boat ready, getting myself ready. One of the training sails was sailing by myself from San Francisco to Hawaii. And unfortunately, sometime into the circumnavigation, I got a kidney stone that was becoming a kidney infection and could become a kidney failure. So it became a critical situation, and I had to abort that circumnavigation. But it was extremely thrilling to be out there in the open sea by myself.
Wow. Okay. What are the 3 most important attributes in climbing your mountain, psychological or physical?
Well, I would say in life, as in summiting the highest peaks in the Himalaya, those attributes would be the same. First, I would say patience, because we are on the mountain and there's so many factors that are out of our control, like avalanches, like weather, rockfall, and we have to sometimes stay at a base camp for days without moving up, just waiting for a small weather window. So being patient is key, not rushing, not just running up the hill, waiting for the ideal conditions, or at least our best chance. Perseverance for sure, because it is really easy to give up. There's so many reasons to just turn back and go home. There's maybe just a few personal reasons to keep going and reach the summit. So perseverance is key. And then being proactive, because if you are not doing everything you can to give yourself the best chance, then you're not going to get up there. If you're just waiting for others to do things for you, you're not going to get up there. You have to be proactive, and you have to be proactive every single day of the expedition, before the expedition and after the expedition.
Amazing. Okay, last question. As an investor and finance expert, if you had to choose one sector to invest in right now, where would it be?
I think right now would be e-commerce, because that's where the world is taking us. This began a few decades ago, but now the changes have accelerated so much because of this pandemic that we're living in. We're living a digital life, and I think that e-commerce is going to be the center of our lives, and it's an industry that we should be invested on.
David, thank you. You did it in the nick of time. You did it within the 5-minute window. Well done, sir. Let's see. Do we have any questions? We've got Carlos Mendoza says, "Buenos dias." I'm guessing you may know Carlos. Dacia Nong says hi. I've got a question for you. Oh no, we've got one coming in, which is, have you climbed, or do you plan to climb Annapurna
Annapurna is an 8,000 meter peak, and statistically is one of the most dangerous. There's a lot of avalanche danger, and I believe there's 2 deaths for each summit of the mountain. So
Wow.
it is an extremely dangerous peak. Although my last 8,000 meter peak that was K2, that was a significant challenge, but even the danger level in Annapurna is higher, and it's not in my map right now. I've learned in my life never to say never, because I might end up doing it, but it's not one mountain that I'm considering right now.
Just tell them, your wife, that question did not come from me. she may never talk to me again. There we go. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard it is pretty well known for lack of people getting up there. So there we go. Thanks, David. Let's move on. Now we're going innovation finance. How did you get involved? What's it all about? What does it take? And what is the future? So how did you get into finance in the first place?
Well, since I was a little boy, I wanted to study aerospace engineering. Maybe it was the adventure spirit drawing me that way, but I was born and raised in Mexico, and aerospace engineering is not something that was easily available to study there, and that would mean living abroad. And I felt that it was not the right time for me to leave my country. And everyone in my father's family was an accountant, so I learned the basics of accounting even as a young boy.
How old were you then?
I was 10 or 12 years old.
Okay.
My dad taught me the basics, and so I ended up getting a degree in accounting. But while I was getting the degree, my father convinced me to also get a degree in business. And he used to tell me that no matter what profession you choose, whether you're a doctor, an architect, an engineer, if you're good at your job, you will end up managing your own company. It's a really great way to see it. So I decided to get this degree in business and specialize in finance. And being diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, I've always felt very comfortable with the precision of numbers and mathematics. And I also understood the fundamentals of finance from analyzing risk and reward, which came very naturally to me.
Now, I'm no expert. Excuse me, Dave, just to interrupt you, but that is a mild form of autism. Correct me if I'm wrong, and that tends to mean lack of empathy, lack of communication, even a limited range of interest potentially. And in the brief time that I've known you, and this is something you've not mentioned before, as a climber and as a leader, your people need to trust you, and that means empathy, that means communication. How on earth do you handle that, having been diagnosed with Asperger's?
Absolutely, and you're right. Asperger's is within the autism spectrum, and with Asperger's, I've become very focused in some subjects. I would say hyper focused. It makes me extremely pragmatic, even to the point of just choosing the wearing the same things, the same outfit. I mean, same combination of clothes every single day to avoid having to make any choices during the day. But many social interactions are very difficult for me. Communicating with others is difficult. I tend to take the literal meaning of the words when someone is speaking figuratively. So that can be challenging. And to develop empathy, I studied Buddhism for 4 years in Tibet House in Mexico, because it's not a concept that comes to me naturally.
Amazing, amazing. So when you entered the world of finance, what did you find when you first came in? What was kind of the environment? How did you handle that?
Well, I started working while I was still in university. I got my first job as a financial analyst for a company that was preparing for an IPO.
Intern, paid, unpaid?
No, I was a paid employee. I was a full-time employee.
Okay.
So I was studying from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. In the morning, and then I would go back to university from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And in between, I was working a full-time job.
Mm.
Um, I, that first work opportunity, I didn't uh, get a mentor, somebody that would guide me through this first experience of finance. I've always been very independent, and even with this, I didn't get the opportunity to have a mentor. But it really put me in the fast lane of learning about finance. I mean, there's so many things that you would never learn in university courses, like setting up a data room, preparing an investment prospectus for the IPO, or selecting an underwriter for the
Yeah,
offering.
exactly. You're learning the real business skills that can be applied. What did you love about it?
Well, it was like getting a real world MBA just compressed into a few months.
Okay.
And preparing participating in this IPO process, it also made me an expert in company valuation, which was something that would be essential for my job.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And when you went into finance, what were the kind of the problems, the challenges that you found?
Well, the first challenge was just before the company went public.
Yeah.
The IPO was scheduled for March of 2003, and while we were on the roadshow before the offering, the US began invading Iraq, and the IPO was canceled because of all of the volatility in the markets.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to get alternate funding for the company, but I transitioned to the investor relation area, and that involved interacting with every area of the company, putting together reports and information for investors. And I was involved in strategic planning, and I was sharpening the skills that would become essential later on. I was completely dedicated to my job, but I wanted to have a more balanced life. I wanted to have the opportunity to pursue personal projects in mountaineering and in adventure sports in general.
Interesting. I mean, because again, Asperger's implies a very kind of singular focus. What tempted you into that balance and that diversity?
Well, I would say Buddhism and finding the middle way. Uh, Climbing Everest 7 times, I think, shows you how narrow my focus can get sometimes, even though I was trying different things each climb. When I finally decided to go climb K2, which is the second highest mountain in the world and more dangerous than Everest in many ways, even though it's smaller, I would pick up book after book, just reading about the mountain, experiences other people had, mistakes they made. I would, besides my technical training on the mountain, I would become an expert on the terrain in every part of the mountain before stepping on it.
I mean, reading books and doing the climb afterwards, I don't know, it feels a little alien, but clearly you're able to visualize by reading and really consume that. That's really interesting. Where did your actual interest in mountaineering and adventure sports actually come from? How did it all get started?
Well, I growing up in Mexico, I started climbing the Mexican volcanoes when I was 13 years old. But my parents were taking me on their own adventures when I was just a few weeks old. And the first trip that they took me in as a baby was to an uninhabited island in the Gulf of Mexico. They went for a scuba diving trip. And then I started diving myself when I was just 4 years old. And when I was 8 years old, my father and my uncles, they salvaged a 41-foot sailboat that had sunk in the Pacific coast of Mexico. And after taking a few years to repair it, I ended up learning how to sail on that boat. So I think that gives you an idea of the environment that I grew up in.
So, I mean, I spent a bit of time in Switzerland and a few other countries. The Swiss kind of treat their kids at the age of 2 and 3 and say, just get on that snow and start skiing. So in Mexico, they just throw you into the ocean and say, start diving and learning. Amazing. Quite a contrast.
Exactly.
When did that world of extremes really start to get some traction with you? When did it really start to take shape? How old were you then?
Well, I was 25 years old, and I decided to redesign my professional life.
Okay.
And I knew that I had to leave behind the corporate world
Right.
and start a series of businesses that will allow me to do this. So this happened after I climbed Everest for the first time, and I realized that one of my big true fears is to live an ordinary life. I really wanted to make my life extraordinary. And that fear was a really big incentive for me. So I felt it was the right time to do it. I didn't have a family that depended on me financially. And I had to design the life that I wanted to live. My father had started a multifamily office years before. And at that time, we decided to partner up. And the investment side of the office had been mostly limited to financial investments. And I understood that to keep the risk down to an acceptable level, um, investments in the global financial markets would help maintain the value of the portfolio and grow it in a very modest way.
Mm.
But venture capital investments, investing in startups, that was the opportunity to significantly multiply a portfolio. So I started analyzing investment projects, dozens of them every year, and my skills for asset valuation really became essential. The portfolios that we managed became much more diversified and balanced.
Amazing. I must admit, if I was coming to you with my investment demands, I would need to be on my A game. I get it. You're going to be very, very focused on a lot of great details. So what lies ahead
Yeah.
for you now? What's the future for you on finance and in climbing up mountains and things?
Well, one of the greatest advantages of my job is the flexibility to work remotely. It's something that I have been doing for 15 years, even before it became the norm during COVID-19. And I would really like to continue doing that. I continue to stay updated, whether it's with tax codes in the countries where we invest in, or the new technical aspects of investments. I am a CFA level 2 candidate. I mean, for those candidates out there, you know how difficult it's been this year with all the cancellations for the exams, but I am ready to conclude with that process, but always keep learning, staying updated. That is essential to me.
Yep.
And in the near future, there's some exits of companies that we're invested in. So there'll be fresh flow of capital, and therefore analyzing new investment opportunities. It is important for me to, even though it's challenging because of my personality and because of Asperger's, to maintain a strong professional network. As many of the investments that have been so successful for our portfolio have come from this professional network or from other family offices inviting us to participate. But I think for me, the main thing is to continue having this balance between work and personal projects.
Excellent. Okay, so you're coming out into the market, looking for new investments as your exit 1 or 2. I hear that. So let's step back just for a few minutes now. Let's go pure finance related. Questions for you. We love innovation and we believe passionately in the fourth industrial revolution, which is driven by us, the consumer, wanting smarter, more personalized products delivered faster. Ever increasingly more environmental and sustainable. How do you pick a winner?
Well, nobody has a crystal ball, and you know what they say about people in finance: you spend half the time predicting what's going to happen, and the rest of the time explaining why it didn't happen. So it's not always easy to pick a winner, but I would say that you try to identify the winners that we know right now and see what put them apart, what set them apart at an early stage, what characteristics they had, what were the keys to their success. So when analyzing a company, you try to look for the same characteristics, the same indicators that were there in the winners. I think it's essential to feel a level of excitement for an investment, but not to get attached to it. And I would say that management of a company and the partners that you will have in the company make 80% of the decision.
Yep. I think, as they say, bet on the jockey, not on the horse. It's all about the management. Absolutely
Right.
get it. What do you think of these new SPAC vehicles that are out there?
Well, SPAC vehicles or SPAC companies, they are disrupting the traditional way that companies go on an IPO process. As you know, they're considered a blank check company. So because they have no baggage, they can significantly speed up the process and offer more transparency to investors. It took some decades for SPACs to be considered a respectable partner for mergers, but now they are widely accepted, and I believe they're here to stay.
Got it. Okay. So COVID, what impact have you seen COVID have on places to invest? I think the money is still there. I certainly hear there's plenty of cash still in the system. How do you see the appetite to invest changing? Where's the new focus because of COVID?
Well, COVID has disrupted, I think, everyone's life. It has disrupted the markets all around the world, and it has pushed forward some industries that had been performing well, but they are really ahead now. And because of our habits have changed, so has the way that we shop, the way that we communicate. And I think e-commerce and companies that streamline the e-commerce experience are a good area to invest in after COVID.
Okay. So very, very much retail, e-procurement, e-commerce side of things. Okay, got it.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, good. David, thank you so much. Fascinating. I still want to ask you a million questions on mountaineering and things like that, but let's stop there. Let's see what questions we've got coming in from the audience now. I know we had some in the early on stage, other than a few hellos. Let me have a look. We got one from Elena here. If I have a great product, how do I get your attention to invest?
Well, I think products or services must have a wow factor. Many of the companies that we've invested in, when they are presenting the product or service that the companies offer to their clients, if you are in that meeting and you are thinking, wow, then that's something to really explore. Innovation, I think, is key, but also it is the person, the personality. It like I said before, up to 80% of the decision of investing in a company can be management and the partners. So many times you invest more in the person than in the product or service.
So in other words, the product or service needs to wow you, but the management needs to wow you more so, for the sounds of it.
Absolutely.
Got it. Yep. Good. Next question. From Padmavoti Bharadwaj, what is common between investing and mountain climbing? There's one for you.
Well, I think analyzing risk and comparing risk to reward or risk to return. Whether it's on a mountain, you are analyzing every moment what route to take, what equipment to bring, the mountain conditions, and you analyze the risks involved, and the reward could be reaching the summit, or just even making it to the next camp to bring supplies. No, so every moment we're analyzing risk, and it's the same thing with finance. It's all about analyzing risk, return. It's a constant process.
Yeah, it reminds me the first time you and I spoke, I said to you, you climb mountains, you do all these amazingly exhilarating experiences. I mean, the rush when you get to the top of Mount Everest has got to be amazing. When you put that finance deal together, it's got to be an amazing feeling as well. And I remember saying to you, you've got to be an adrenaline junkie, and you cut me dead and said, no, not at all. I'm actually just a risk mitigation guy. So that kind of supports what you just said. Thanks, David. Interesting.
No, absolutely. And I would say if you're driven by adrenaline when you are investing, then you're not an investor, you're a gambler. And it's the same with mountains. You can be living amazing personal experiences, or you can be gambling with your life. And that's very similar with mountaineering and with investing.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Okay, next question. What do we got? From Josiah Bahina, what are some of the most exciting investments you've made so far?
Well, one of the companies that I'm most excited about, it's called CargoBot. It is based in the US. And what this company is doing through an app, a platform, it's connecting shippers and carriers. So truckers and companies that want to ship their products. And to explain it very broadly, it is like Uber for the trucking business. It's extremely disruptive. It is totally replacing brokers. It is offering complete transparency to both parties, which is something that is non-existent in that industry. And I'm extremely excited about that company. New changes every day, new opportunities every day. It's really changing the way that shipping is done in the US.
So it's a US focused organization, is that right? Is that what I heard?
It is so far, but it is a model that can be easily replaced in Europe, in South America, in Canada, anywhere.
You bet. Yeah, I mean, I know personally, I mean, shipping stuff around the world, you're trying to find a little bit of space in a container where you don't have to pay a fortune for it. And I guess it's filling containers and it's direct to consumer. Absolutely an Uber, Airbnb model by the sounds of it. Yeah, interesting. Got it.
Right.
Okay, next question. What do we have? We've got a few coming in here. From AJ Padmanabhan, what is the best investment advice that you have heard?
I've had the opportunity to be surrounded by really great investments, so really great investors, and I would say that is never to be driven by emotions. Always be driven by analysis and rationality. And if it's the same as with adrenaline, if you're driven by emotions, then you're gambling. And if you are driven by also not to get attached to an investment, it is better to cut your loss than to go down with the ship. No, I think those two would be the most important ones.
Remain unemotional, but surely when you make that kind of decision, it's got to be a bit of a gut feeling thing as well.
It can be, but it's not an emotional decision. I would say it's maybe your instinct, or you can call it a hunch, perhaps. Sometimes yes. But I mean, I think instinct is the result of past experiences, and your brain makes the decision for you.
Got it.
No? So I think it's still a rational decision, but just not a completely conscious one.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I think AJ's asked another question, actually. I don't know if we're able to pull that up. Yeah, next one. You mentioned above winning elements in companies you look for. Could you please mention a few?
Yeah, I would say not if it's a startup, for example, not focusing on profit, not having a profit-based analysis at first, because it's just not the, how to say, it's not the nature of most of the companies that I invest in the initial stages. Revenue, I would say the supply chain, I would say mostly how unique and innovative the product or service is.
Yeah.
I think when you start putting all together, you get a picture of the company, of the potential.
Yeah.
And trademarks, yeah, I think is also an important thing to analyze. So the software they're using, who owns it, all these little details that paint a big picture.
Yeah, understand. Okay. Any more questions? Anything else we've got out there? Maybe last couple from Shaktival. When you invest, what role do you typically take in the company?
That's a really good question. I think it depends. It like everything, it's negotiated, and it all depends on the size of your investment. If you're a small investor, then you're lucky if you get quarterly reports, annual reports. But in most of the companies that we invest in, we try to get a seat in the board of directors, or at least in some of the committees, for two reasons. First, to have first-hand knowledge of the performance of the company, but also because we feel that we can really contribute to the company with so many investments in so many industries. There's definitely something that we can bring to the table. So we try to get a seat in the board of directors, or at least being in committees within the company.
Great. Good. Let's take a final question. What do we have? Do we have something? We covered them all. I think we may have covered them all. Oh well, there we go. Yeah, let me have a little look. I think we got the lot. David, thank you so much. Again, you've been amazing. What you've done is incredible. Best of luck to you. Thanks ever so much for being on the show. And if there's any more questions coming in, I'm sure you'll jump into the feed and get back to people. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, David. Okay, everyone, next week, very quickly, it's looking at the biggest headaches in going smart Industry 4 manufacturing with my colleague Christoph Grauer and the industry lead for Industry 4 lead, rather, global lead for $11 billion plus Atlas Copco. Big suppliers with old approaches, agile waterfall. What do we do with all of that data and pitching tech and not solving the problems? So many of the headaches that we are going through for smart manufacturing solutions. Have a great week ahead. See you next Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 1700 Central European, 2130 India. Have a great week. Thanks.